Hi, I'm Carol. I work for UK, which is a massive franchisor for Burger Kings in Britain, and we run about 70 restaurants. So, and I have a thought and a question. The first thing is about first aid training. We do the one-day emergency first aid course for employees, which most retailers do because it's one day and staff turnover, but it doesn't cover anaphylaxis or use of auto-injectors. So we just asked our supplier, can you include it? We went, no problem, no extra charge and everything. So it's a conversation it might be worth having with your first aid provider. But my question is, have you got any thoughts on communicating the contains information to customers?
Shall I start? Maintain is the bane of every allergic sufferer's life, not only in food service but also with regard to food that they buy from food retailers as well. And the problem with maintain is you can say it about 40 different ways as well. Contains a trace of, made in a factory, we may have handled. And the problem with that is that none of that is actually based on science. So, it's very, very difficult. I think that with regard to maintain, we need to educate the consumer so that they don't take a risk if something doesn't have maintain on it, because maintain is voluntary, so that's a really key point. But more over and above that, we're currently very actively involved with the world's top scientists actually. Professor Claire Mills leads the work in Manchester on thresholds, and I don't know how many of you are familiar with work on thresholds, but basically this is to try and establish levels whereby it's safe for virtually everyone to eat that food, so it doesn't have to have a maintain. And that work is going on. Big plug for our corporate membership scheme. There's loads of information on that particular scheme on our website. But maintains a real problem. And the main problem with it, as I said, or one of the main problems, is that it's voluntary. So you can choose to put it on or not put it on. And that is where the conversations come in. And I know Lisa and I are so pleased because she seemed to focus on the same thing as I did, communication. Because there is a risk of cross-contamination, because you have got the fish next to the egg or whatever, communicating that to the consumer who comes into your establishment is so important, because then they know, my goodness, I would be taking a risk if I am egg allergic or fish allergic, because they cannot guarantee cross-contamination. But it's a huge issue,
It's also an issue for caterers, as I'm sure you're aware. And interestingly, on Tuesday, one of our members said that they have now taken the decision that they will not buy any food if it's got a may contain on it. So it either has it in or it doesn't. And that's quite brave, but they're a big company. And it is really, really difficult for you guys to know and how to communicate that information. Because if you're not careful, every single food will contain every single allergen and beyond. And I think it's time for pushback, especially if you're a big company like this particular one was. You said, right, that's it. I spend several million pounds on food and I'm not having it anymore. And that's the way we're going to go at the moment.
I'll just echo what Liz was just saying. Certainly not made out of gel-free card. You want to use that maintain. But I do also empathize with a lot of businesses here where again it's the supplier issue where the suppliers aren't giving you sufficient information or detail. And in fact, one of the people I was talking to this morning was saying that some of the things they're getting basically says may contain and list the 14 prescribed allergens. Just as a defence for themselves, really, to say that they may be cross-contamination because there are different products that they have in their lines. So it's a real issue for you as a business in terms of getting your suppliers to have to challenge them to give you better information and more detail about what is the real risk in terms of what they're supplying to you and what's actually in it. I just echo what I said. Lynn did deal with the first major point that was raised, so I'll give mine back to her.
Of course, every first aid training in the businesses that you're in should contain anaphylaxis training. To me, it's, you're not the first person to say that to me, and it happens in other first aid training courses. Also, sometimes the training given isn't necessarily the right training. I mean, we have free courses which are for families and carers and for schools, which can be used, for example, by the school catering assistant right up to the head teacher. Very basic. What is anaphylaxis and severe allergy? You don't go into technical detail. What does an allergic reaction look like? And what do you do if someone is having an allergic reaction? I mean, in my dream world, 2 years ago, we were successful in working to get changing the law to get generic adrenaline injectors in schools, and we would like to see generic adrenaline injectors elsewhere, certainly in shopping malls where defibrillators are, and in some countries they've been successful in certain parts in getting them in restaurants as well. Training, 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 communication, communication, communication.
Just one point about the injectors that you use for adrenaline. I don't know, I've never used one, I've never seen one used, but I know the defibrillators, I've never used one of those, but apparently when you take that pack off the wall, wherever it's stored, the information, most of these packs is given to you, it's a recorded voice telling you what to do, how to do it, how to go back into the equipment. And I don't know whether that's, how much information is actually supplied with the injectors.
There are 3 types of injector: Emerade, EpiPen and Jext. They're all very straightforward to use, provided you've been shown how to use them, so I come back to the training point. There is a fantastic device that's available in North America, and I think it's available in Canada too, that actually speaks to you and is very straightforward to use. Unfortunately, it costs more than the adrenaline injectors that are available on prescription in the UK, so it's unlikely to be available here. But adrenaline, I think a key message, if I could get it out to everybody, you could get it out to everybody who you think may need to use an adrenaline injector. Adrenaline is harmless. It will not hurt you. So if you inject somebody with adrenaline, using an adrenaline injector, you might have a little bit of a frisson, but actually it will not hurt you at all. The only counterindication is if someone's got a very bad heart condition, and even then, any clinician will say the need to use the adrenaline overrides the heart condition. So they're easy to use. You need to train people. People need to know what they look like. They need to know what to do if someone is having an anaphylactic reaction, because if they don't have to have adrenaline, they may be having the first reaction they've ever had. Call 999 before you do anything else. Don't call their mother. Don't go and get the chef. Don't do all of that business. Adrenaline first, 999, then everything else follows after it. But this all comes down to training, and I hope your first aid company are now giving you that sort of level of advice.
So, if I may, I just want to, I'm going to put myself in your shoes. There's two really important points here I think we need to really be absolutely clear about. Just on this one, on the first aid. So if you're a restaurant here, lots of restaurant managers. So are we saying that your expectation would be that those restaurants should have injectors on the premises with trained staff?
No, they can't have injectors on the premises, that would be illegal.
So that's the guest?
Yeah,
it's just
what I'm saying is that
user.
would be an aspiration maybe, which has been taken forward in other parts of the world. Rather like we have schools can have adrenaline injectors on their premises because it's a prescription drug. And one would hope, and the key message we keep giving everyone, if you are severely allergic, you need 2 adrenaline injectors and you need to carry them at all times. But of course, if you're in this group that we keep talking about this morning, the 15 to 25-year-olds, particularly if you're male, you don't always necessarily want to have them with you. And if somebody has an allergic reaction and they don't have their adrenaline with them, you just call 999 immediately.
So the advice is to have first aid training in how to use that, or the...
Absolutely.
Right, so just to be absolutely clear on
Absolutely.
that. And just going back to the may contains, the people we have in this room this morning have suppliers that regularly send in specs that say may contain something. Today, right now, you're getting those coming in. So although this is frustrating and challenging and so on, as of today, should these restaurants reflect that may contain in the information they give to their guests, or is your view that it's up to them to make a decision on that? What's your advice to the restaurants that actually do get everyday specifications that come in saying may contain, or all the other phrases that you mentioned?
It's a very simple piece of advice. I go back to the supplier and say, you put may contain on it, upon what is that based? Because very often we know, and somebody alluded to the fact that sometimes you can pick up something and it seems to may contain everything. And I didn't bring them today, and rather like Lisa's handlers, I've got loads of pictures of things with may contain. Only a couple of months ago, I was sent a picture of a banana in a major retailer that had a may contain nut sticker on it. You know, I've got some wonderful pictures, but my advice would be, rather like you're saying some companies are going along that path, push back to your supplier. That's what I would advise.
Who's got a question? Gentleman back there?
Sorry, I feel that answers about as vague as the may contain label. Can you say yes or no as to whether we should put may contain products as labels on the allergen menus?
The answer is I can't, because you are assessing the risk as you get that product in and deciding how you evaluate that information. But my answer is you need to evaluate that information, and if you're not happy with it, and if as a consequence it's affecting what you're serving to the consumer, which it will do, ask the question.
Can I ask Lisa, do you think this will be addressed in the new guide? Because it is, I think that what you're asking is probably what everybody else is thinking. Do you believe this will be addressed in the guide, Lisa?
When we start talking to the FSA and the other stakeholders and broaden the scope of the guide, because basically I just had to rewrite a guide that was already there. And just make sure it was accurate as we are at the moment, as we could at the moment. But yes, we will be talking about that. And I've already been to workshops with the Food Standards Agency where we're trying to unravel what can we do about this issue. But the thing is, if you've got information that says may contain and you don't portray that to your guest, and then it does turn out that it does contain enough to cause an allergic reaction, then I don't think you'll be covered. You won't have your due diligence. So you probably do need to tell the guest that this food may contain, if that's the information you've got from your supplier. But in the meantime, go back to the supplier and say, let me see your risk assessment, because the may contain is supposed to be based on a risk assessment that the supplier has done. Now, one good thing that's happening is that the latest BRC, BRC 8, will actually address this problem. So we may find that things are improving because of the BRC, the new BRC standard. So that's something to be hoped for. We're definitely going to be plugging because we know this is a big frustration, not just to caterers, but obviously to consumers as well. But I would say be very cautious about not passing that information on to your customer, because it could be that particular food actually does contain the food that they're claiming. You've got no way of knowing unless you ask the supplier.
It's a very challenging one, I have to say. Another question.
Thanks, hi. Do all 14 allergens have the ability to kill people?
Yes.
Okay, no more questions.
Following on from that, the sort of seemingly unlimited list of allergens that we've been talking about today, so kiwi fruit, pea protein, that kind of thing, do they also have the ability to kill people?
Yes.
Well, definitely that's something.
But if you want further information on that, A, you can go to our website and we've got fact sheets on all sorts of things that will help you with that information. And B, you can always ring our helpline and there's staff at the other end who'll discuss that with you if you've got an issue with a particular food that's behind that question.
It's more if someone's in a restaurant and they... It's more if someone is in a restaurant and they say they do have a severe allergy to something that is not the standard 14, that's when it becomes really quite difficult to deal with.
Yeah, absolutely. And coming back to the point that I think's been repeated during this morning, you will have about 25% of the population who may be misusing that phrase. But if somebody comes in and tells you they're allergic to cheese but they're not allergic to milk, these things happen, I tell you. You can, go further with that individual because there is a misunderstanding, shall we say, about what severe food allergy actually is.
Just following on from that point, really, these additional allergens which are coming through, like protein, fruit, etc., which are not prescribed at the moment, is a real problem for all of you because, as you just heard, any of these things could have a severe allergic reaction, can kill someone. And what are you to do when your own supplier is not required to tell you about the content of these, potential content of these ingredients that may contain these other items? But your due diligence needs to be such that you actually want to know exactly what is in all of your products, in all of the ingredients, not just those that are prescribed as food allergens. So you need to have that information available too. If you do that, and you then work around that basis so that your kitchen staff are aware of what they're actually producing and what's in it, all of the ingredients, at least you've got a way of knowing where somebody does ask the question of going back to the root, potentially saying yes, this does contain this or it doesn't. But ultimately it comes back to the waiver of giving you the answer. Sorry, I can't guarantee it doesn't contain this. We just don't have enough information from our suppliers or our ingredients. It's not prescribed allergen. We're not obliged to list it and tell you about it, so we don't actually know it. And then that person obviously has to take on the risk, I think. So it's the one.
I was just going to say that if you're in doubt that you can actually reduce food safely for that individual, then you have to tell them. Yeah. And again, sometimes you get thinking about this may contain a cross-contamination issue. I was speaking to someone who had a guest with a mushroom allergy, and the gravy had traces of mushroom in it, and it wasn't declared anywhere because why should it be, I suppose? And it caused a reaction. So, just be really, really cautious.
Yeah. Sorry, just to build on that, we would much prefer that took place and the establishments actually said to people, I'm sorry, we really can't guarantee this. And then that individual can make the informed choice and maybe go elsewhere or not eat or whatever it is. The real danger comes when people don't give that information in that way.
This is just for either. With the pea protein case, I'm assuming the liability fell on the restaurant that wasn't aware of the substitution. But if your supplier does not inform you about the substitution, in terms of due diligence, how often should we be reading the labelling of every product that comes in? Should it be done weekly or with every order? I mean, if we're getting it from someone like Breaks or JJ who then get their products from a third supplier, how can we guarantee that they will tell us every time the allergens change?
Yeah, that's a good point. I can't really talk any more about that case. It's still sub judice. I'll give you as much information as I'm prepared to, really anonymising it as much as I've had to. As I say, the account that was given in relation to that was the allegations that was made by the individual, not necessarily accepted facts by the business. But in relation to your general point is how often are you supposed to check, or what is your expectation from your supplier? And I think that's the part of your due diligence is ongoing information and updated information that you should expect from your suppliers in terms of any changes to their products and or ingredients. And I think that would be echoed by my fellow panelists here. So you would certainly expect them to tell you And then obviously you are expected to act on that information by updating whatever information you're then providing to your customers. So, you know, as a matter of due diligence, that's what you're expected to do. So if you want to not end up in the dark, then you expect your suppliers firstly to be telling you about any changes to ingredients, additions, or things that have been removed. So that it could work the other way. It could be removing things from ingredients which actually going to make it safer. Certain people have different types of food allergen to eat, whereas it was previously they couldn't serve that product. So either way, you want to make sure that whatever information you're giving to your customer is correct, accurate, and updated regularly and as is necessary, depending on how often your suppliers actually give you that updated information. But you should be actively making sure that they do so.
I assume that you should make an agreement with your supplier to say, please provide this information, and if it changes, please let us know.
Yeah, I think you're absolutely right, David. I was just about to say that you know, it's your contract. Your contract with your supplier is really important, and you know, don't take anything else away today, apart from how to inject a pen. But I think you know, the food coming in, that's your lifeline, isn't it? If you get that wrong. So you've got to push back on the supplier. You've got to make sure that in your contract with that supplier, you say, I will not accept any substitutions. I would say that's the safest thing, because even if they substitute a non-14 allergen, it might be the beef protein or it might be something else. You need to know what's in your food, and they must not change that unless they let you know.
Another question, one more? While you're thinking of one, I'm going to go back to one I mentioned earlier on, the warning on the menu. You know, you've done all your bit. The law is about intentional ingredients, isn't it? The law is intentional ingredients. So the cross-contamination element and the potential for it to be non-intentional. Remember, you're required to provide information on ingredients that are intended to be in that product. And that's why you get that information from the suppliers and you pass it on to your guests. This issue of cross-contamination, and therefore the potential to put a warning on the menu saying we cannot guarantee that this will be free from XYZ. That to me is still a little grey. Maybe it's not. What are your thoughts on that? In terms of what should these businesses do in terms of preventing cross-contamination, and what's your view on putting this message on a menu or not?
I think the message needs to go on the menu, regardless of whether you're not trying to get out of anything. What you're actually trying to do is raise people's awareness that there may be cross-contamination in the business, and therefore you need to know about it so that you can take the necessary action to make sure they're safe. So it's how the wording is actually done. So it's not a disclaimer, it's actually a helpful message to alert the allergic guest to enter into a dialogue to tell you that you need to prepare food that hasn't got cross-contamination.
And I think this is also an area where the discussion between back and front of house, as it were, is so important. Because if that is on the menu and an individual does draw it to ask the person who's serving, the likelihood is that individual may not be able to give a detailed, informed response. And that's where the communication comes in with the people who are actually preparing the food. And what is really reassuring and really helpful, though I know it's not always possible, is if the person who's actually preparing the food can talk to the individual and come out, rather than relaying it via the front of house person again, and say, this is how the food's prepared, so everyone is making an informed decision. And I think that's a really important point. And even though the prevalence is very high, as I mentioned, you know, between 6 and 8% of children and 1 to 3% of adults, it's, you know, it still should, I would suggest, be doable to enable that sort of conversation to take place.
As I said during my talk, I think that type of wording should go out there. So whether you want to put it on the menu, however you want to do it, it should go out there in every instance. However, having said that, if you just by putting the wording on doesn't mean you're going to escape any sort of potential criminal liability. Because if your back of house practices, your kitchen staff, etc., the policies and practices that you've adopted back of house aren't up to scratch, then you're still going to be going to find yourself in all sorts of problems. So you need to have appropriate protocols in place, and most of the food safety law is based on reasonable practicability. So providing that you've done all that was reasonably practicable in terms of having your policies in place, having your hazard plans, your risk assessment in relation to food allergens, etc., and you've got appropriate policies and protocols in place with your kitchen staff, then in addition to having that message out there that, as I echo what Lisa says, it's an informative set of wording rather than an attempt at a waiver of liability, I think you should be okay. But yeah, just by putting the wording on the menu, you won't escape liability if actually you've got no proper back of house policies or protocols that you're actually following correctly.
I think it's still one question a little bit further debate. We're recording something. Yeah, okay. I think it is a tough one, and I personally, as you can probably tell, because from a waiver point of view, my understanding is, as you say, Ivy, that it doesn't have any legal standing. And secondly, if you are allergic to things, you will make the assumption anyway, I guess, that the restaurant is a restaurant, and therefore there is a risk of cross-contamination in the restaurant as opposed to, say, manufacturing environment. Okay, good. Thank you very much.